Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports is Ordered. And we are 2 days away from the beginning of a crowning of our 6th new champion in the last 6 years. Will it be Boston? Will it be Dallas? Mr. Logical and I got the answers. And then we go and talk about the thing that everybody's talking about, even though we don't like to talk about what everybody's talking about. We got to talk about it. It's the one and only Caitlin Clark. It's the one and only Women's National Basketball Association. And now that I've mentioned him, let me do this the right way. We got the even kill. Born in Texas, raised in VA, representing New Jerusalem. Ain't nobody representing New Jerusalem like this since Redman came on the scene. T-Neck, Millville, Trenton, Camden, stand up. He is Mr. Logical.
Yeah.
And I'm down here in the Alamo under these heat advisories. Heat index 117 degrees, and that still ain't hotter than my takes. Going left so much that you thought I was southpaw. I tried to tell you about Deontay Wilder. He still ain't gone left yet. I am 2-5. Let's get this thing started.
Yeah, he was practicing that spin move.
Yeah, but he spun the wrong way. That's the problem. And I saw right before we came on, I saw Boots Ennis' opponent has to drop out, so they got to find a new opponent for him. You know, we got Tank coming up in a few weeks. So, you know, boxing is back, I guess, for the time being. But real quick, get it off my chest. Nothing too serious, nothing too crazy. But I just want to let people know I'm taking it back to the days of Black Sheep. The choice is yours. I hear people complaining about people like Stephen A. Smith. I hear people complaining about people like Skip Bayless. And yet somehow these dudes are still on TV because they still have support. Like, we complaining about it, but people still watching it. So I'm going to tell you about something that I'm going to complain about that I'm not watching. I'm tired of y'all sending me these clips of these dudes talking about these hypotheticals. I don't care if the 2004 Pistons would beat the Golden State Warriors or not. They wouldn't, first of all. But I don't care. You know, I don't care what Draymond Green has to say unless it's in the context of a post-game comment. You know, saying unless it's in the context of we got him mic'd up during a basketball game. You know, saying I don't even want to watch Paul George play basketball, so I couldn't care less what he got to say. You know, saying I don't even, what's next? I'm going to have to listen to James Harden too. You know, so what's happening here is this is still your fault, public, because y'all have these Jordan LeBron debates every day. So now it's seeped into podcasts and sports media to where now you got Draymond Green arguing with Rasheed Wallace about who would win when the Pistons were out here winning games 77-71 and Golden State was damn near scoring 77 and a quarter. Why are we doing this? Why Jeff Teague telling us that James Harden is the third best shooting guard of all time? Why he saying that Kyrie Irving is a top 5 point guard of all time? Y'all keep clicking on it. That's the answer. The choice is yours. You know what I'm saying? And I ain't even need Captain Planet to tell me that. But yo, let's get into this. Even though this is a talk show, this is a podcast, we do a lot of talking. The time for talking is over. Because on Thursday night,
to tip
TD
off
Bank Garden, you got the Dallas fans and Boston fans on Twitter arguing about which city is the most racist. I don't know the answer to that question, but I know Boston racist as hell.
Yo, keep it a bean. I had an outstanding weekend in Boston a couple of years ago.
I've heard Boston is a great city.
Yo, so even my pops told me it was racist.
Besides
I was
the
like,
fact
yo,
that the airport is like, you know.
Yo, the airport's on an island somewhere, man. It's not even Massachusetts. It's in the middle of the Atlantic, it felt like.
The
Yeah.
airport is in Bermuda.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Yo, I had a good time in Boston. I got so many free drinks, free food. I was having a ball.
I do love clam chowder.
Yeah,
I've been known to slam some clam chowder.
I was getting old fashions and Ozuls and like the expensive overpriced tequila with the little silver cap. Yeah, we was getting that on the low. I was having a ball in Boston.
Yeah, I love it.
People was like, "What Boston did you go to?" Even the people from Boston was like, "What Boston did you go to?"
Hey, people forget that new addition from Boston. You know what I'm saying? Boston got some black roots, you know.
Yeah, I was hanging out in Fenway, yeah.
But anyway, let's get to this.
Dominicans.
We did get word today that Kristaps Porzingis is back for game 1 of the NBA Finals. We don't know, is he going to be on a pitch count? You know, how effective he's going to be. But first thing I want to ask you, Mr. Logical, before we even get into all this.
Yep.
Can Boston win this series without Porzingis?
Yes.
Okay. Let's hear it.
I didn't think he was going to play when I made my proclamation a couple weeks ago in our group that I thought Jaylen Brown was going to be the Finals MVP. Just because, like, I just think that Boston, granted, they haven't been tested. Like I said, they only played 14 games in the playoffs this year, and people can call it a cakewalk. Well, they played a whole season and won 64 games. So it's not as if they won 51 games in the regular season and it was close, and then the team that they played in the playoffs, it would have been evenly matched, and they lost their star. They were still outmatching these and outclassing these other teams anyway with their star player available. Jimmy Butler and Miami Heat didn't have enough firepower to beat them in a 7-game series. Cleveland didn't have enough size to beat them in a 7-game series. And Indiana didn't have enough experience or defensive mindset or concept or constructs at all to beat them in a 7-game series. So I think they would have beaten anybody on the way to the finals. Maybe they would have played 14 games, or they would have played 16 games versus the 14 that they played.
Right.
They still would have, like I said, they still would have closed these teams out. I'm not sure what Kristaps going to do. I imagine he's coming out with the second unit. Like I said, I haven't heard any reports about him getting any contact, any 5-on-5, any 3-on-3, if he was running. The only report that I've even seen pop up on social media or even through some of these sports outlets that we do get our information from was today when I saw that he was going to be ready for game 1. Everything else was he's not going to be ready. He's not going to be ready. He's not going to be ready. And then boom, he's ready. But I didn't hear anything in the middle, anything about his rehab, anything about what the injury actually was. It just was calf. You know, so is it the upper part of his calf? Was it a strain? Was it a pull? Was it a tear that needed to heal? Is he going to play with a sleeve? You know, if it was worse than what Jamal Murray was dealing with, because you remember, like back in the Lakers series, they were concerned that Jamal Murray might not play game 3.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, but he obviously still played and hit the game winners, 2 out of those 4 wins that they had. So I imagine that Kristaps is going to come with the second unit. And, you know, I imagine he gets 22 to 24 minutes tops. I can't imagine him playing more than that. But Joe Mazzulla, I always call him Mike. You never know. He might have a different plan for us. He might, obviously he knows more than what we know, and he might really just put him in the start lineup and run with it. Who knows?
Well, you know, Mr. Logical, I had a dream. I had a dream that all through the TD Bank Garden, there were Boston fans crying everywhere. I had a dream that Kyrie Irving took a pass from Luka Doncic, right side of the court, pulls up over Drew Holiday, and hits a 3 to put Dallas up by 4 in game 7. I had a dream that Dallas won this series. And then I woke up, dog. I woke up. You know what I'm saying? As I look at this series, you know, going back to Porzingis for a second, you know, Boston is 46-15 in the games that he's played this year. So going to be a tall order here. This is where I think Dallas runs into trouble. So let's push the Clippers series to the side for a second. Dallas's first round series. Let's push that to the side for a second. When I look at the second round and the Western Conference Finals, they had to worry about SGA and they had to worry about Anthony Edwards. So those were two guys that could get their own buckets, and you didn't have to worry about anybody else really creating their own shot. Naz Reid got hot for a game. Jaden McDaniels got hot for game one, but they weren't going to be able to keep that up, and they weren't going to be able to create those shots for themselves. The problem they run into in this series is that if Jason Tatum has an off night, Jaylen Brown's waiting. If they're both off, Derek White could hit 4 to 5 threes in a game and do it consistently.
Correct.
If you look at Drew Holiday, he's been making plays all over the place. The steal against Indiana, timely
Correct.
shots. Al Horford can have a game where he gets you 4 threes. Porzingis, if he's healthy, can have a game where he gets you 25. This is the first time, because Kawhi missed the first round. Or most of the first round. That's why I wanted to put that to the side. So this is the first time that Dallas is really playing against a team that had multiple ways to beat you on a given night, and it doesn't have to be a star. And when I look at Dallas, PJ Washington, for example, against the Clippers, he shot 31.3 from 3. Against OKC, he shot 46.9. And against Minnesota, he shot 25%. What that says to me is inconsistency. So can PJ Washington hit enough shots? Because Dirk Jones ain't going to do it. Hardaway hasn't been getting minutes. So even if you do play him, is he in rhythm? Dante Exum ain't going to hit a thing.
And how long is his leash if you put him out there?
And how long is his leash if you put him out there? Yes.
Yeah, you got to get in a rhythm. But if he comes out and he goes 0 for 3 between the timeout that he gets put in the game and the TV timeout, he might be back on the bench.
Right. And then last thing, real quick, before I toss it back to you, now with Porzingis out there, this is where I complain about the new NBA, because we always talk about how teams jack threes. And, even if they have mismatches that they can get to the basket with. Well, Boston, this is the series where Boston shouldn't want to go to the paint. Said if you got Porzingis and Horford out there, Lively and Gafford coming out here. They're coming to the free throw line. They're coming to the 3-point line. They're coming to the corner. They're everywhere but in the paint. So this is the series where Boston should play the way that they play.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of Powell. I think he moves a little better. And then he has experience over Lively. But Lively is such a big body. Kleber, I don't know Kleber. I think Kleber just gives you the same thing. Like, he just pulls Horford away from the basket. I don't think Kleber does anything for you on the defensive end. As far as, like, I don't know if he helps. I don't know if he can switch on to Jaylen Brown, because they use Horford in the pick and pop a lot because he can shoot the 3. He's a big body. He's a smart guy, and he'll be able to get these guys over. So if you switch to Kleber on the Jason Tatum, as long as Jason Tatum doesn't shoot that side step back 3, like if he gets that switch and he attacks the paint,
lights out.
It's lights out. Or Gafford comes over, Lively comes over, and it's a foul. Or you just get a dunk, you get the crowd into it. Those first 2 home games are going to be crucial, because Boston, like I said, they dominated regular season at home, but they just get a little flaky in the playoffs. But I think also because they were better than these other teams, I don't think they were ever felt pressed. But now you're in the finals. They've been there 2 years ago. This is Luka's first go-around. It's first time for Kyrie in 8 years. That's a long time. That's a big gap in between. So I give the experience edge, ironically, to Boston, just because I think they've been in bigger games over the last few years.
Well, there is something that we were talking about last night when we were on Cups in the Gang that
shout out to the hot box
could prove to be relevant, right? But what if Dallas wins game 1?
If Dallas wins game 1, I can't say they will win game 2. I thought about it last night because I think I said something like they'd probably win game 2. I think just the way Boston can shoot the ball. If Boston shoots the ball well, Dallas won't win game one.
Mm-hmm.
So if they win game one, that's probably going to be attributed to Boston going something like 10 for 41 from three. And then you're relying solely on Tatum and Brown, and they're putting up a lot of shots. The ball's not moving because role players are more apt. Pritchard gets a long rebound off of a missed three by Dallas. He's more apt to pull that 1-on-3 3-point shot if they're up 8 versus being down 4. I think he brings the ball up and they set the offense up. Because I think the role players know, like, yo, we got a little cushion. I can get busy too. That's how these leads go from 8 to 16 to 22 to 25. It's because each role player gets comfortable with the gap in the lead.
Right.
If it's a tight game, it's probably a tight game because Boston isn't hitting a lot of threes. But if that's the case, I don't see Boston shooting poorly 2 games in a row, especially at home. Like maybe the jitters, maybe the rust. Like I said, I think the last game they played was a week ago.
Yeah.
So they're going on like 8 or 9 nights without playing any basketball. And like I said, I don't know what the practice schedule is. I don't know if they lightened up. I remember, like I thought about when Ohio State and the Florida Gators played for the national championship game. I remember Urban Meyer. They interviewed him and asked him, like, what was your process? Because it was like 40 days between the end of the season and the national championship game. He was like, we practice every week like we had a game on Saturday. We just didn't have the game Saturday. So has Boston been practicing as if they had a game and a break and a game and a break and they practice a couple days, or did they rest for 3 or 4 days in a row and then they get back to practicing? So like,
yeah,
like if they lose game 1, I can't imagine losing game 2 because I can't see them shooting poorly 2 nights in a row at home.
And there's a lot of storyline here. Obviously, Kyrie back to Boston goes without saying. You know, there's also Porzingis against Luka or against Dallas, however we want to frame that. And another storyline that I was thinking about. Now, this may not apply because Jason Tatum has been here before. But I was wondering, 2011, LeBron was the villain. And to some degree, that played a role in his mental health. I don't think that applies to Jason Tatum per se, but does Jason Tatum have a certain pressure? Like he's been getting criticized all playoffs, even though he's been averaging 30 for the most part, in all this. Like he's been getting criticized.
39-4.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown just won Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Is there a certain level of pressure that, because El Residente brought this up on Cups in the Gang on Sunday, if Jason Tatum comes out trying to win Finals MVP, Boston's going to lose this series. I don't think of that as his personality.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I
think that applies more to Jaylen Brown.
I don't think either one of them play that way. I'm not sure if it was trying to find a different comp. If it was the Clippers, James Harden, Westbrook, Paul George, Kawhi, I can see one of those 4 guys maybe doing a little too much.
Kawhi and Westbrook and Harden pressing.
Yeah, pressing for legacy, pressing to prove the doubters wrong, the haters.
So at this point, you think Tatum is just like, let's just get this ring, man.
Tatum and Brown, if you look at the trajectory of their career, it's been nothing but success.
Mm-hmm.
Like they haven't had bad years ever. Like they were never a poor team. They were in the Eastern Conference Finals. We're looking at 6 years, 2 NBA Finals. They got knocked out by they kept getting knocked out by Miami. It wasn't as if they were getting knocked out in the first round. Like if you think about if this was like Giannis and Dame, Giannis has been getting bounced, losing games, getting hurt. He might want to go back and reprove.
Allow me to reintroduce myself.
You know what I mean? Like what I did in 2021 wasn't a fluke. And he would come out and be over the top and hurt himself. I think Tatum and Brown, I think they're so locked in because they've been through this whole thing together the entirety of each other's career. going back to back drives.
One stat that stood out to me that I just thought was absolutely ridiculous. How do you attempt 18 alley-oops with Karl Anthony Towns and Gobert on the backside?
Because they were stargazing. It was so many. Like, I got a stat here. Derrick Jones Jr. shot 60% from two.
That's nuts.
Because he was getting nothing but lob dunks.
Yeah.
He was missing every jump shot, but he got so many lob dunks. They were getting it from half court. They were just Luka watching because they were so about getting the switch that the big was focused more on Luka getting to the paint versus the three guys who are only out there to catch lobs. So if you watch the Minnesota Dallas series at all, and you're a defensive strategist in the coaching staff of Boston, if you let that happen to you, you should just sign it, throwing your resignation because you know what's coming.
And that's why when I
not getting the ball in the block and giving you the dream shake and he's just not getting it. He's getting the ball in the air at the rim, and that's it.
And that's why when I look at this, for Dallas to win games in this series, I feel that they're going to need the late game heroics. You know, Kyrie's going to have to come through with daggers. Luka's going to have to hit a step back with 4 seconds left or something, or like at the end of a shot clock, something along those lines. I could see Boston winning their games by double digits in this series. So that's where, like, for me, that was another reason why I'm going with Boston in this series. And, you know, before I say how many games and all that kind of stuff, you know, Boston still hasn't lost on the road yet in the playoffs. Another question is, can they speed Luka up? Because Luka plays at a very deliberate pace. You know, can they make him uncomfortable? Do they have enough defenders, effective defenders? I think the answer is yes, but do they have enough defenders that will frustrate him to where, remember when they were playing OKC, I brought up Lou Dort and I said, yeah, Luka could get his 30 points, but can I hold him to 11 for 30? You know, versus 17 for 30 or, you know, whatever. Can I keep him off the free throw line, you know, 6 to 8 times a game?
Does Boston have that kind of defender where, because Lou Dort was just, he was taking open threes, but mainly he was out there to get 6 fouls on Luka.
Right.
He was out there harassing Luka the whole time. You're not going to speed him up. I think the only time I recall him being frustrated was game 1 against OKC. And then, like I said, between games 1 and 2, he had that I'm Kevin Durant, I'm Luka Doncic moment. Because in game 2, he didn't argue with the refs, he didn't fall. He just, and I think from game 2 through game 5 of the Western Conference Finals, he played with that calmness that I'm Luka. I'm shooting from 27 feet. I'm shooting from the logo. I'm cussing you out in Slovenian. I'm cussing you out in English. I'm calling you a bitch in front of your girl and your newborn kid. Like I'm Luka, and I think he had that moment after game 1, and he's been on the tear ever since. I think he still is going to play that way. I just don't know how effective his role players are going to be because those guys have to defend. They have to defend on the defensive end, whereas they could just rebound and defend the paint because Gobert is going to be around the hoop. Cat is going to shoot threes, but Cat shoots so many threes that you didn't need a big on him.
Right.
You know, you could play him with, I think Derrick Jones Jr. was on him a lot. You know, like you could play him with a matchup with a 6'6" guy, 6'7" guy because he was playing like a 6'5" shooting guard. He didn't use his size, and he couldn't because Gobert is somewhere down there.
Right.
And Gaffer's hanging out. So I think it would have been effective if he could have knocked down his shots. It would have maybe caused Dallas to switch up their defense, where I think Horford is going to knock down Horford's going to get open looks.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to knock those down, which is going to cause Jason Kidd to make an adjustment. You know, I don't think he's going to be overwhelmed, but he'll have to break the shell a little bit of whatever his base defense is if Horford starts hitting threes and if Derek White starts hitting threes. And if like I said, if you pull Lively and Gafford, or if you put Powell in the game, you pull him away from the hoop. I'm not sure what on-ball defender could even stay in front of Derek White.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Tatum.
So it sounds like you're with me for the most part that Boston should win this series.
Correct.
Would you feel that way if the coaches were swapped?
We talked about this in the pre-meeting. If Dallas, like, see, that's the thing. I was picking Boston for like last couple of rounds. I only a couple of times this playoff run I saw Mazzulla, and he, like I said, one game against Cleveland, he had Pritchard, Hauser, Cornette, White, and Tatum on the floor, and I just was. And they still had Donovan Mitchell. I think they had Garland, Donovan Mitchell.
It's like Darvin Ham. Is that you?
I just was like, what are you trying to get out of this group you have out there? Like, are you trying to just give an extended rest to Drew, Al, and Jaylen Brown so you can maybe just kind of? I think the game was close. It wasn't like, I think it was like maybe. It might have been a game that Cleveland won as well. I think it might have been like a 5-point game, and Donovan Mitchell kept driving the paint, and it made it to like a 9 or 11-point game before he called a timeout and switched the lineup up. So long as he doesn't put that lineup out there against Dallas, I think he's fine. As long as he just keeps size, like you can put Hauser and Pritchard out there together, but you're gonna need Horford and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum out there with those two guys. Or if you're going to put
I just don't see what Dallas can do without, besides Kyrie and Luka in the pick and roll game. But I don't think Mazzulla would use that if he was Dallas's coach. So, like, I think Boston would probably sweep or win in 5 games if we swap the coaches.
Well, I think if you think about it, NBA players, yes, in game, they're shooting like 29. Like, you got Derrick Jones Jr. shooting 29% from 3. I think PJ Washington, I think his percentage was somewhere around like it's like 32 or 33. But if your offense is designed to get open looks, you give a guy too many open looks, and that hoop starts looking like an ocean, and they just start falling. Like Cat, that one game that Minnesota won. One went in, and then another one went in. And when it was like 92-90 in previous games, he probably didn't shoot, but he had knocked down 2 in a row. He shot the other one from the corner, made it 95-90. He was hyped. Like, it was only a 5-point lead, but he was hyped because he was feeling it. It wasn't like they were trying to claw back and he hit the 3 and it made it 98-93 and they're still down 5. Putting them up 5, and then he came back and hit another one. You know, he went for like 4 for 5 from 3 that game. And that was the only game that they won. But that confidence, when you see a couple go in, like Luka in game 5, when he hit that, I think when he hit his second 3 and then he hit the logo, I was like,
it'll be a long night.
Yeah, I'm like, it's a wrap. Because you can't even defend that. You can't defend any player in the league that has a green light that Luka has, and he's hitting from the logo.
And that's where Porzingis and Horford come in, because, you know, taking it back to the regular season, you know, Porzingis was 37.5 from 3. Horford was 42% from 3. So if that's anywhere near where they are in this series, then there's not even, because I know one of the things that you always bring up is Gafford likes to bite. He's aggressive going for the block, you know, but if he's not even there, you know, it's open lane, it's open season for a whole game. Jaylen Brown can go get you 30 easily.
He almost knocked Jones out trying to get a block on Ant. Ant hit the layup on like the step through. I look up Gafford and Jones on the ground. I'm like, dog, it's you up 3-0. Calm down.
Yeah.
It was like game 4.
And that's the other thing. Like, Boston's got the rest. So, you know, I would be concerned normally for somebody like Horford and Holiday, you know, being a little longer in the tooth, if you will, you know, but they've had a week now, you know what I mean? So, you know, I think they're fine. You know, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are obviously still pretty young. So I don't expect much issue there. So the advantage that Dallas could have isn't even there because Boston got rid of Indiana faster.
Yeah, that was a smart move to really press that that game one, I think that game one against Indiana should be a lesson that if I'm Missoula, Joe Missoula, Mike Missoula, Noah Missoula, anybody named Missoula, I'm putting on game one of the Eastern Conference Finals and say, we can't do anything that we did in this game prior to Jaylen Brown's last shot, because that's when they turned it on. Jason Tatum had 10 points in that overtime, but everything prior to that was just poor. They had leads of 12 that went away like that, went away effortlessly. It wasn't like Indiana was like firing up threes. It was like you had a lead of 12, boom. Now it's tie game. Get another lead of 12, boom. It's a tie game. It's like you can't get this to 13, 14, 15 against this team at home game one after they just played 7 grueling games with Tom Thibodeau's Knicks. They should be exhausted. It should have been done, and you should have run them off the floor in game one. That's the film that I'm watching. That's what I probably would have had them watch it every day.
And I'm sorry to my Laker fans out there, but I got Boston grabbing number 18. I'm gonna call it Boston in 6, though I really feel like Boston in 5, but I'm just giving Kyrie that respect, because of his clutch ability. He is my favorite player and all that stuff that has nothing to do with breaking down a game. I'm just gonna say, oh, why I gotta be all that unk? I'm just saying that at the end of the day, Boston is the better team. And as Mr. Logical had this conversation a couple of months ago, sometimes the simplest answer is the best answer. Because Luka is the best player in this series. Then I would probably go Jason Tatum. Then I would go Kyrie, Jaylen Brown, and then like the next 3 or 4 is Boston.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is how I look at this. So sometimes the simple answer is, what? Boston's just the better team. They won 64 games this season. They cleared their conference by 15 games heading into the playoffs. Sometimes you just got to follow the tea leaves.
Yeah. So, I got Boston in 6. Like I said, it could be 5. And like I said, it's just like you just mentioned, if you go back and forth, Luka, Jason, Kyrie, Jaylen, then it's White,
Drew,
Holiday,
White, Porzingis, Derek White, before I even get to PJ Washington.
And then with PJ Washington, I think Peyton Pritchard gives you the offensive power that PJ Washington gives you, but he gives it to you as he can initiate it. That's the difference with Boston. Is like they have guys like Hauser has a green light. He's firing up threes and he's playing, moderately good defense with the help. But Pritchard can initiate his own offense. Derek White can. Drew Holiday can if he wants. Whereas Dallas, you put Luka on the bench. Kyrie is initiating the offense. You put Luka and Kyrie on the bench, you're not going to do that. So it's just like, Dante Exum is a point guard, bigger point guard, but I don't know if he runs the team. I don't think he officially can run the team and get you points.
No,
because he's not a threat to create points on his own. Whereas Pritchard, you can put Drew Holiday on the bench. He might not give you the same defensive prowess, but you can still run the pick and pop with him and Horford. You can run the pick and pop with him and Tatum. You can run action for him to get him open for corner threes. Is like you can run so many things for different players that Boston puts on the floor. Maybe that's why he had the Cornette, Hauser, Pritchard thing out there, because it's like you can do so much with this team because so many guys have the freedom to shoot threes. Like he said, he wants to shoot 43s.
Well, some of that is the LeBron conundrum, where you play a certain style that's through your star, that when the star is off the floor or off or foul trouble, the team can't function that well, even if you have someone like a Kyrie. And that's how I view Dallas, where, like, to your Exum point, they play a certain way and a certain rhythm, a certain style with Luka out there that can't be replicated. There's some teams out here that, you can take your point guard off the floor and the team doesn't lose much value if everybody else is out there. Dallas isn't one of those teams.
Yeah.
So both of us got Boston in 6. You know what I mean? Over under before the WNBA season ends, Caitlin Clark is going to find herself in 8 headlocks.
I'm gonna take the under, but she will get elbowed another 16 times.
All right. So look, we talked about this, way back when I called out the first lady because, she invited Iowa to the White House when LSU won the national title for the everybody gets a participation trophy moment. Here we are. Caitlin got her revenge during the NCAA tournament this year, sent Angel Reese's team home. Now we're in the WNBA. Caitlin's got the attention. A lot of these women don't seem to be very fond of Caitlin Clark or the attention that she's getting. So where are we, Mr. Logical? What is the state of the WNBA?
The state of WNBA is simply this.
No.
It's a favorite line of mine is like, you're the cat that got the canary, but you're too busy licking yourself. You have the gift. It's like, it's just basically saying like you have the thing that you're asking for.
Right.
You want the attention. You need it. You needed more fans in the seats. You needed things to justify this expectation and this desire to get paid more money. You have those things being put in place based off the attention that you're getting from this one particular rookie, and then you add in Angel Reese as well. You add in Cameron Brink. You add in
Rakia Jackson.
You add
Cardoso. Cardoso is back.
Cardoso. You got the back-to-back WNBA
and my girl Nika Mule ain't even shown up yet.
Then you got she got her visa. She's good to go.
Yeah.
So she's playing games now. So then you got Becky Hammond, who was highly regarded as one of the best coaches in basketball, men or women, on Pop's staff in San Antonio. She has back-to-back championships. Your finals MVP just got her signature shoe deal. So you have all of these things. You have people talking about your league, and it's like, y'all should have been doing this a long time ago. Well, you gotta sell us your league. It's not the responsibility of ESPN. ESPN signs the deal, but you have to be the one up front selling your league. The WNBA office is in New York City. The NBA office is in New York City. Times Square is one of the most visited places in America, all over the world. They need billboards of their stars. They have great stars in New York City playing for the Liberty. Ionesco. Breanna Stewart probably had the best college basketball career of any person who's ever played basketball. It's up there with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar when he was Luau Center at UCLA. 4 national championships. I think she won Player of the Year 3 years in a row. They had like a win streak of 100 games. She's right there in New York City, not on any billboards. So they have to advertise their own league, and this is what they're getting the advertisement that they want. Yeah, maybe it's too late. Maybe Diana Taurasi should have been highlighted more when she came out of UConn, because she was a star. Like I said, Gino Auriemma said, we got Diana and they don't. Sue Bird, all these legends. Now you have to find a way to retroactively give them credit for what they did to build the league while simultaneously using the momentum that's created by Caitlin, Angel, Cameron, all these young women that came into the league. The fashion. Now they got the walk-in cameras now they're doing their fashion thing, and like the men were doing it in the NBA with basically wearing the same outfits.
Yeah, now they got Skims.
Now, they got the Skim deal. So you got Kim Kardashian's pretty famous. I'm not saying it's like a Taylor Swift kind of thing, but it's like exposing her fan base, which is huge. The Kardashian fan base is huge to women's basketball. And then you get them. You got them in. You have these teams in major cities. You have. Granted, Caitlin Clark is in Indiana, probably the smallest of the market, but she's the most polarizing star right now.
She's the supernova.
Yeah, but then you have Angel in Chicago. You have Cameron in LA. You have like Sabrina, who almost beat Steph in the 3-point contest. Like people thought it wasn't even gonna be close. I'm like, yo, she could shoot. She didn't play with boys her whole life. She only played with girls in college because she couldn't
She
play
might
with
have
boys.
beat him if she shot from her own line.
And like I said, she shot from the NBA line and still,
Yeah.
I think he won by 1. And people acting like, see, she didn't belong. Like he is the greatest shooter of all time, and she almost beat him at his own game.
Right. And first of all, before I even answer this question, man, it's about time to take that damn picture down by now, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, how much torture can a brother take? But anyway, so yeah, that was my expectation, that we were headed towards Bird and Magic, because not only did they play in the NCAA tournament 2 years ago for the national title, they played again this year. They played again this year, and Caitlin got her revenge. So we're even, Steven, if you will. So we get to the WNBA. The problem is we can't have Bird and Magic because neither one has necessarily hit the ground running yet. Like when they played last week, the final score was 71-70, and Angel went 2 for 9 shooting layups. You know what I'm saying? Like just last night or 2 nights ago, Caitlin had 3 points on 1 of 10 from the floor. She's shooting 35% overall, 29 from 3. So they can't be Bird and Magic right now because they aren't playing up to that billing right now. You know what I'm saying? But that was the intention, I believe. So with that being said, where we are is Caitlin has brought in a new audience that the WNBA hasn't had as far as numbers wise. And as I was telling Mr. Logical off air, this is like where I never see Asians talk about boxing unless it's a Pacquiao fight. So there's a lot of wrong people that are being attracted to the WNBA now through Caitlin. You have people who want to see women's basketball explode, like myself, and fans that have been there from day one who want to see the league get what they feel the league deserves. But you got all these emboldened, knuckleheaded, borderline to actual racists that are infiltrating the game and the conversations as well, turning it to a place where Bird and Magic didn't go because there was no social media at the time. We knew the Lakers were the urban black team. Boston was the blue collar white team that was being supported in that way.
Gym rats.
Whereas
hard screens and pick and roll basketball, yeah, and
whereas
Caitlin, in LA,
right? Whereas Caitlin, we talk about winning time with Reggie Miller. You had the small town Indianapolis going against big time New York City, so you had that dynamic in play. Whereas here, you got Caitlin in Indiana, the small little town, against Angel that's in Chicago. So you still have some of the remnants and elements of the Bird Magic situation. They just aren't there yet as players, which is fine because they're rookies. They'll get there, But the problem is that the rest of the league now, I think, is caught up in a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about: the online, the talk, the Twitter. People out here calling Angel and Kennedy Carter thugs and all these type of things like that. So, now we're having a different conversation. Whereas, like, for example, one of my favorite players, Dejanay Carrington, of the Connecticut Sun, you got Alyssa Thomas, who gave Angel Reese the sleeper hold body slam. They're 9-0 right now. And they're only the 7th team in WNBA history to start 9-0. But we're talking about Caitlin. So I can understand why people are upset. Now, they shouldn't be beating her up. Like, you know what I mean? They shouldn't be beating up Caitlin Clark, even though she does do the thing with the referees that, we get mad at NBA players for, with the whining and the complaining. Yeah, Caitlin throws elbows, she pushes people, and nobody calls her out for it. You know what I mean? So that's part of the problem, is that she's not being held to the standard that these thugs are, even though to a lesser degree she's acting out some of the same behavior.
Yeah, but that's been the case for the last couple of years. She waved off Haley Van Lith in and said you're down by 15 when she was talking trash to her. She's a competitor. She's a bit of a front runner, but most 3-point shooting stars are like that because you need that kind of cocky swag to hit that step back, sidestep, dribble, 3-pointer from 27 feet. And I get it. But she's also very young. Like I have a 21-year-old son. I'm teaching lessons. We learn lessons to this day. I have a 20-year-old son. It's like you're learning things as you go along. The issue is I'm not sure if she's getting the tutelage that she needs, and that's why she's kind of acting out because she was given a silver spoon fresh out of Iowa.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, I'm not going to deny that. Like those things.
No, not that part. The part you said prior to that. I'll get to it. I'll get back to that.
Oh, as far as like maturity.
Yeah, I'll get back to that.
Oh yeah, it's very immature to argue with the ref the entire game or to pout and whine.
That ain't where I'm going with it though. I got somewhere else to go with that.
People call it intensity. People call it gamesmanship. You want to be involved. I get it, but in the same sense, the WNBA overall can benefit from the exposure, and I think they're kind of allowing themselves to fall into this social media narrative playing out in real life in lieu of just saying they should be putting out when someone drops. I think a few players this year have already scored 40 points in the game. There's been some blowouts of like 30 or 40 points.
Yeah.
Highlight that. Like
Cameron Brink out here looking like Dwight Howard.
So we talked about Luka and Tim Hardaway. If Tim Hardaway was the cash cow of the Dallas Mavericks and he went 1 for 8, but Luka dropped 40, you could talk about his 1 for 8, but talk about Luka's 40 first. Luka put up 40, 10, and 10, and then you could talk about what everybody else did. It seems like now because she's so polarizing and it can attract so much attention, it's whatever she did. Like, oh yeah, she had like 30 points, but she went like 11 for like 23 or something like that to get the 30 points. And I think they still lost. But the thumbnail that they shared is like all of her points. Like, okay, did they win the game or not? So it's like
turnovers at
the turnover.
But the reason I'm glad you brought up what you brought up is because that's part of my problem with all of this. And I'm not saying that you're wrong, and I'm not accusing you of anything. As Stephen A would say, I am not casting any aspersions. But this is what I see online. People talk about Caitlin's maturity and how she might be a little immature. Black athletes don't get that excuse. You know what I'm saying? We don't.
Sometimes they say you're immature when you do something that like anybody else would
not
do.
In that same way, not as a defense. Usually immature is an insult.
No,
you know what I mean? Because society has taken white women, and we talked about this pre-meeting, the crying moms and all that stuff, the victimhood, they've taken white women and decided that white women are delicate, and we've decided that black women are tough. They have this exterior, and it's not even aspiring. It's not inspiring like, wow, look at what she's overcome. It's tough in a brute, masculine kind of way.
You're tough. You can deal with it. You can handle it.
Right. And that's another part of, because there's a lot of layers to what's happening. And I think that's another layer of what these women have a problem with. They're not handling it the right way. What Kennedy Carter did was wrong. There's no excuse for it. Now, Caitlin did elbow her, might have been inadvertent on the prior trip down the court. She did come down the court, jacking her jaw and, running and talking her trash.
Yeah,
and
but if you can't handle that,
it's not about that. It's not about that.
It got to be about
is that on? No, is that on top of? That's just a part of it. That's just a part of it.
Then everybody got to deal with it.
No, that's just a part of it.
The problem is when we talk about race in America,
adding gasoline to a flame that already exists.
That becomes a sole part of the conversation, and we just kind of lack context. I get it. She's a white girl and she's good at basketball. Let her just be good at basketball. It's like she's not carrying the torch for white girls in basketball. She's getting her ass kicked.
That's our society.
Getting her ass kicked. I'm just like, yeah, it's just like I think people are pandering. I don't like the pandering. either way. But I definitely don't
Right,
like the
right.
pandering that people do when we try to get black people. They try to get us riled up about and make everything about race. Something is simply about she's hot. She's gonna make us money.
I
We're gonna
think
ride
that
that
there's a
wave.
totally
She
different
has black.
dynamic.
Yeah, it's definitely a different
I think there's a
dynamic.
totally different dynamic if the races are reversed and these are white women that are beating on a black woman this way. I think the whole thing, the whole conversation is different. The tenor is different of the conversation.
Yeah, but they were all talking like Diana Taurasi they were shitting on her before when they were in the tournament saying it's gonna be a rough ride.
That's not
No,
shitting on her.
not necessarily shitting on, but it was they definitely were not
I mean,
a fan of hers, and the tone was very clear, which is fine. I'm good with that. So it
right.
wasn't like she's absolved of any kind of criticism. I'm simply saying that because of the attention that came from this year's tournament and this crop of players, look what you got out of it. She's not getting any favorable treatment. Her team is still losing games. It's not like their team's getting 50 free throws a game and they're just letting her do whatever she wants. They're still losing games. They
Right.
won a couple of games here and there, but they still
I
got
think
that
they
ass
won
whipped
one.
in New York. I think they won like 1 or 2 games. I haven't checked the record, but they
Yeah.
got that ass whipped in New York. They got that ass whipped by Vegas, I think. They've been getting spanked. It's not like she's getting so much treatment that a mediocre team is winning games because she's just getting a lot of attention because that's what you do when you are considered like you've usurped everybody else and now you're the queen of the league. That's what people are upset about. It's not that she's getting favorable treatment. She's getting shit on just like any other rookie would be who was having bad games. It's just that they like to talk about her. They like to highlight her.
So that brings me back to the original question.
All pub, good pub? Yes. Because they need it. They need the publicity. Think about the Golden State Warriors claim the fame over the last 30 years. You had Run TMC, you had Baron Davis when they beat Dallas, and then it was quiet. You couldn't find a Golden State fan outside of Northern California if you tried. And then they got the player that became polarizing. He dropped 55 in the Garden, a player fresh out of the tournament. People said, oh, you can't win the games like that. And they end up winning 4 championships in 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
You just need someone. You talk about Kobe coming out of high school. People they thought he was too cocky when he put his head down, said he's taking his talents to the NBA, and he went 18th. Got traded for Vlade Divac because people were like, oh, you can't win like that. Jordan.
But he also got a lot of criticism, though. She's not getting that criticism.
We're all criticizing her.
No, we're criticizing her as far as, oh, she went 1 for 10. She's supposed to be the savior or whatever. I'm talking about when we turned on the TV, the media was talking about Kobe and how his immaturity, this and XYZ, blah, 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 blah. They were talking about, this jump shooting team, blah, blah, blah. The media is basically like, yo, why won't they just let Caitlin cook?
I haven't heard. Only person I heard say that was shout out to Club 520 was what's the boy name? I keep forgetting his name.
And we've said that. A lot of people have said that because of what she's brought the league.
Jeff T said, listen, he's like, I think they're doing it all wrong. He's like, I think they should let her cook a little bit just to get the attention. Not let her just win.
People on sports TV that have made
I don't think. Too. But once again, that hasn't come to fruition. That's just people creating a marketing scheme via conversation. That isn't tangible to what's actually happening on the court. What's happening on the court is she's getting that ass whooped every single night. That's what I'm saying. It's she's not getting any perks on the floor. All the perks have been spread out amongst all the WNBA teams when they got planes. They have stadiums of 18. The Fever outsold the Pacers in the playoff series. And the Pacers just went to the Eastern Conference Finals. And the Fever had more people at the game. That's what they all are getting. Everyone's ignoring the fact that they are all benefiting from the hype train that is Caitlin Clark.
Right.
Along with all the rivals that she had over the last few years. It's the perk of these top female college basketball programs staying at the top. Because if you think about, if you have like Duke, Kentucky, UCLA when they were good, Arizona, if these teams every single year were 1 and 2 seeds and they were making it to the Elite Eight, we would know who these players are. But the men's league, they don't make it that far. A lot of guys are one and done, so you don't get to fall in love with the player in the college uniform. Whereas women, I think they have to play like 3 years.
Yeah, they either have to play 3 years or they have to be 22.
Yeah, so you get to follow what South Carolina did. You get to follow Don Staley. You get to follow Jenny and Paige Beckers, and she's coming back for her 5th year. You're going to get 2 more years of Juju out in USC. So we're going to be able to create. They're going to be able to use this as a launching point for the next round of players coming up, because we are going to be just as enamored with Paige Beckers. I think people like her more.
Mm-hmm.
I think her maturity level is higher than Caitlin. I think Caitlin, her dad had to yell her at this tournament 2 months ago from the stands and told her to shut up. So it's like, we know she's working on it. So it's like, it's just for people to just act like, oh my God, I cannot believe this is the case. This is the case in every single sport. You have certain teams that drive the needle. You have certain players that drive the needle. Back when Odell Beckham Jr., he never won. I don't think he was an all-pro. I don't think he was like first team or second team all-pro. He just was polarizing. And people talked about him all the time. They talked about how he organized a trip when he went down to Miami for New Year's, and that's why they lost a playoff game. He got all that attention, but it brought a lot of attention to the Giants. They were on primetime games. Aaron Rodgers, another polarizing guy who probably should work on his maturity and his ego. But the Jets, who were a mediocre team to poor for the last 4 or 5 years, we're talking about all pub being good pub, they have more primetime games than almost every other team in the league besides the Chiefs. And the Chiefs won back.
I think this year it's the Jets, Cowboys, and 49ers that all have 6. They have 6.
5 or 6.
Yeah.
Okay, 6.
And so going forward, I mean, so as far as beating Caitlin up, we need 1 or 2 things to happen. We need Caitlin to just start busting their asses. You know what I'm saying? Or we need somebody on Indiana to take on that Charles Oakley, Draymond Green role, the hockey goon, if you will. And if you touch Caitlin, I'm touching you. And so you may get yourself, hopefully I'm not advocating for a Malice in the Palace or anything like that. But that might be closer to what we need to get back to the basketball than we have right now. But yes, you're correct. The things that the attention that Caitlin has brought to the league are things that some of us and some of the WNBA players probably never thought they would see. The private jets, like the different amenities.
16,000 people watching your game. Your games being sold out weeks before you play
in
them.
NBA arenas.
Games in prime time. Like we looked it up earlier. The NBA Finals, if it goes 7 games, last game would be June 23rd.
Yep.
The WNBA has 4 games scheduled that day. 3 of them are going to come on at 3 o'clock. And the primetime game for their level of primetime, 6 o'clock game, is the Indiana Fever versus Chicago Sky. On the day that it would be game 7 of the finals that will probably start at 8:30.
And then I got a message for my fellow.
They know what they're doing. They just gotta ride this wave out. Like, I think people just want everything to be smooth for some reason. I think because we look at social media and we only see the good parts.
Right.
Like we only see the filtered pictures. We only see from the chin up with the angles and everything in the Photoshop. I think people are so used to seeing perfect that they don't understand. Like, sometimes shit is ugly. Even though it's successful, it's still
a process.
Ugly. And I think people are just, I keep saying people, but it's like, this is how it looks. She's going to get roughed up. She's a polarizing figure. It's the same thing when Peyton Manning came into the league, number 1 overall pick. He threw a bunch of interceptions. They didn't trade him. It's going to be rough. Like I think the people talk about, oh, she's the GOAT. They were talking about her college career. She had a great college career, and now she's trying to transition to the professional league with women who've played in the States for $50,000 or $60,000 a year. Then they've gone to Europe, or they've gone to Russia, and they played in hard circumstances. They've gone through the ringer, and she came through and she's getting a little bit more shine than they feel she deserves. Cool. You make her earn it. But in the meantime, recognize that you might earn more money on the back end based off of this new wave of players coming in, because we know these names. We know Paige Beckers is going to come out next year. We know Juju Watkins is going to come after that. It's going to be more of these names. And as we get in there, Angel Wilson, we're going to get more of her. Kelsey Plum, we're going to get more of her. Becky Hammond, there's going to be a lot of conversations like, can she coach men? You're going to get the conversation going about everyone. Right now, the polarizing conversation is her.
You just got to let it bubble. And I do have a message for my fellow Baltimorean, the one and only Bayou Barbie. I don't know if she ever settled on a new nickname. I know she was looking for one. But look, Angel, you either got to be the villain or not be the villain. You know what I'm saying? You can't do this tweener thing. You said you were willing to be the villain back in college. You wanted to be the foil, or not wanted to, but the media was putting you in a position to be the foil to Caitlyn's hero arc. Own that.
Just got Andrew Reese has got a double technical and ejected out of the game.
See, there you go. You
for
just gotta own it.
Something very minor. It looked like she just waved the referee off. Like,
yeah, you just gotta own it. You know what I mean? You can't be sitting up here in the press conferences. Oh, I don't have anything against Caitlyn. Like, we're just competitors. And then when Kennedy knocked her on her ass, you over there giving her the celebration like she just hit the game winner in Game 7.
I mean,
own it.
Hey,
own
she owns it.
We had the bad boy Pistons. Own it.
I'm pretty sure Spike Lee and Reggie Miller don't really have beef, but when he was busting the Knicks' ass, he looked right at him. It was like, "This is your fault," and gave the choke.
That's different, though. But Reggie owned that.
Wade did the same thing to the Sixers when he saw Kevin Hart or something.
Reggie,
like, "Yo, this is
Reggie
your fault."
Didn't go to the press conference. Reggie didn't go to the press conference and say, "Oh, I was just in the zone and I just got caught up in the moment." Reggie was like, "Yo, we hate New York." You know what I'm saying? Own that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Own that. You know what I mean? That's all it is you either going to be the villain or you're not going to be the villain. You're going to walk around doing what you do, and people are going to do these things, say these things about you. If you're the villain, you got to be prepared to handle that. And that goes back to the word you used, maturity. You know what I'm saying? You said something that you might not have understood the full meaning of or understood the consequences that come with being the villain.
You just got to look at, like, every time there's a mic in your face, you don't need to make the statement. You don't need to give a Martin Luther King, "I have a dream" speech every single time there's microphones in your face. Sometimes you just got to say the slick, the simple statement. It was a good game. It was a hard-fought game. We wish we would come out with the W.
Yeah, Kennedy was the villain. Kennedy was like, "I ain't answering no questions. I ain't say nothing to her. She ain't say nothing to me." Like, move on. And then you saw the teammate was like, hey, let's move on. Like, because Kennedy had already beat up some teammates in the past. So, no, there's a place for that.
Sometimes you got to catch your hands.
There's a place for the villain. And that's the thing that sometimes people don't understand.
But Angel Reese is not out here lacking. She, like I said, she has her brand being sold in Dick's Sporting Goods. She's doing what she needs to do. She is capitalizing on the era that we live in.
But does the brand get in the way of her being the villain?
I don't know if anybody's a villain. I think they're out there just playing basketball. First of all, you got to win something before you can be a villain.
Well, she did. If we go and use Caitlyn's career as the GOAT, like,
no,
her for the title.
No,
like, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm talking about in this league. In this league, you don't get to be the rookie and the villain. It's like, who are you? You're a henchman. You would Joker.
She a part of the Foot Clan.
Yeah, you on the bus with Joker, and if you get closer to the front seat that he's crashing into the bank, then he'll put you on game and you'll learn something. In a couple of years, you could be the villain. But right now, you're a henchman, and I think that's it. We're just giving him so much attention that it's overwhelming everyone, because I believe people feel like Diana Taurasi deserves attention. Sabrina Ionescu deserves attention. Breanna Stewart deserves attention. Candace Parker, who just retired, deserves attention.
She does.
She deserves this level of attention, and that's fine. But right now, she's getting it. So now you go ahead. If it's a lightning rod, electricity takes the path of least resistance. You go ahead and stick your rod up there. You get some of that. So you
Everybody
bust
just
Caitlyn.
go for 35 against her.
You go for 35 against the Fever, or you have a marketing night where you give everybody in the audience shirts like OKC does. You as a WNBA, like you lean into the fact that you have a proverbial cash cow and your wits. Same thing with Texas A&M did with Johnny Manziel. He was hanging out with rock stars and everything else. He embraced all the money stuff. He was getting paid, but it was like, you know what? Listen, we know he's drunk, smoking weed, but boy comes out here and balls on Saturday. We're gonna ride it out. Good, bad, or indifferent. Like I said, good pub or bad pub. It's pub. You need pub because those same players were on, Delta flights playing against 4,000 people. I'm pretty sure the feeling, because most of them, they went to major colleges, were playing against, 10, 11, 12,000 seat arenas. They're used to having a lot of fans, and then you get to the league, and it's I have less fans.
I think that's the thing that people don't understand. The WNBA has always, to some degree, had a level of what we're seeing right now. We're just seeing it at a higher level, and we're seeing it because there's more spotlight. But there have been rookies getting knocked on. Kelsey Plum was telling a story about how
Tarazi
used to beat her up. So, like, this is something that has happened. There just wasn't the spotlight before. There just wasn't the eyes on the league that we have now. So it seems like it's crazy. And part of it could be because they're women as well. And people
left Embiid in the game to get 70 on Wemby.
Yeah.
They were up like 14 and they left him in the game so he can get 70. Not necessarily on Wemby, but
right.
He bust Wemby ass. He was like, yo, I'm busting ass.
Right.
Ant-Man got his, he got his beating in the playoffs back in the day. You gotta take your lumps. Jordan took his.
This is basketball. This is the culture of basketball. You know what I mean?
Yeah, people are just glorifying, try to extrapolate this to all these different realms and race. And yeah. White girls play basketball and college basketball too. They win. We like Sabrina. We like Brianna. Like, some of the best women in WNBA are white. It's not like she's the first white girl to come out of a school and play in the WNBA. There's tons of them. It's a lot of them. Like, the league is probably more balanced race wise, definitely than the NBA. I think the NBA might be like 10% American born white players, probably another like 10-15% of foreign players, and the rest are black. I think it's like 70% black NBA. But if you count foreign, like Canada and some guys from Africa, but like black, white, it's like 70-30. So like the WNBA is probably closer as far as percentage. I just think people are trying to make a mountain out of molehill.
The WNBA is DEI in reverse.
Yo, listen, if you can ball, you can ball. That's all you need.
Yeah, but yo, on that note, we're gonna end it there. He is your even killed. Don't bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
Mr. Logic.
Play ball. Bust the ass when you get on TV.
Yeah, bust that ass.
Without
actually busting her ass.
Hey, listen, as long as you don't hit her in the head or hit her knees.
You know what I'm saying? Play ball, huh?
Yeah, you gotta play ball.
All right, well, there you go.
So
you heard it here first.
Hard foul. Just no cheap shots.
When we come to you Thursday, the NBA Finals will be underway. So do me a favor. Like, review, subscribe, share all the good things, all the free things. Share it with Granny. Good night, Grandma. Hope you enjoyed the show. We will be back. We will see you soon. And as always, if you ever doubt, you should never doubt the fact that we love you. Catch you in a few days. Peace.